My wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day my brother destroyed our family forever. I watched him glance around the reception hall, reach into his pocket, and quietly drop something into my champagne glass. He thought I didn't see him. He thought I would drink it. He thought I would never know. So I smiled. Then I switched our glasses. 30 minutes later, my brother stood to give a toast. He raised his glass. He smirked. And then something happened that made the entire room fall silent. But that wasn't even the worst part. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 29 years old on the day I married the love of my life. The ceremony was perfect. The weather was perfect. Even the reception hall looked like something out of a magazine. The only problem was my older brother, Ryan. Ryan had spent most of his life believing everything that belonged to me should have belonged to him. 3 years earlier, our grandfather had left me controlling shares in the family business. Ryan never accepted it. He claimed grandfather had been manipulated. My parents always told me to ignore him because that's just how Ryan is. By the time the reception started, Ryan was acting strangely cheerful. Too cheerful. He kept offering to help with drinks, greeting guests, and smiling at everyone. Then I saw something that made my stomach tighten. Standing near the champagne table, Ryan looked around carefully, reached into his pocket, and dropped something into my glass. For a second, I froze. Then I saw him walk away. I didn't panic. I didn't confront him. Instead, I calmly picked up my glass, switched it with the one sitting at his place setting, and returned to my seat. A few minutes later, Ryan grabbed the microphone. Smiling confidently, he raised his champagne glass and prepared to give his wedding toast. Ryan stood in the center of the reception hall holding the microphone like he owned the room. "First of all," he said, raising his glass, "let's congratulate my little sister on finally getting her perfect ending." Guests laughed politely. I smiled and lifted my own glass, pretending everything was normal. Ryan took a long drink from the champagne. Then he continued. At first, his speech sounded harmless. He talked about our childhood, family vacations, and embarrassing stories. But after a few minutes, the tone started changing. "You know," he said with a grin, "some people always seem to get everything handed to them." A few guests exchanged uncomfortable looks. Ryan laughed. "I mean, some people get lucky enough to inherit opportunities they didn't even earn." My parents immediately stiffened at their table. I knew exactly what he was talking about. The family business shares. Ryan took another drink. His face began turning slightly red. "Funny how life works," he continued. "You spend years preparing for something, then somebody else gets it because of one signature." My mother shook her head. "Ryan, that's enough." But Ryan ignored her. He drank again. Suddenly his words became sloppy. "You all think Emily deserved those shares? Please." The room fell silent. Then Ryan laughed bitterly. "If everyone knew the truth about grandfather's decision, none of you would be sitting here celebrating tonight." For a moment, nobody spoke. Ryan swayed slightly, gripping the microphone tighter. My father stood up. "Ryan, sit down." But Ryan wasn't listening anymore. The bitterness he'd hidden for years was pouring out in front of everyone. "You all want to know why grandfather gave Emily those shares?" he said. "Because he never trusted me. That's the truth." A nervous murmur spread through the room. I felt my heart pounding. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. 2 years before grandfather passed away, he'd called me into his office. "Some people mistake responsibility for punishment," he'd told me. "One day you'll understand why." At the time, I hadn't understood. Now I was starting to. Ryan laughed bitterly and pointed at me. "She thinks she's some business genius. She has no idea what I've been dealing with." My mother looked terrified. "Ryan, please stop." "No." He slammed his glass onto the table. "I needed those shares." The room became even quieter. Ryan wiped his face. "You know what happens when creditors start calling every day? You know what it's like when the bills never stop coming?" Several guests stared in shock. I felt a cold realization forming. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. Ryan was desperate. Years of excuses suddenly made sense. The missed payments. The constant emergencies. The money my parents kept lending him. Then Ryan looked directly at me. You were supposed to help fix everything tonight, Emily. My stomach dropped. Help fix what? I asked. Ryan pointed toward a folder sitting beside my father's chair. For the first time that evening, I noticed it. A thick stack of documents. My husband reached for the folder before anyone else could. Ryan laughed. Go ahead. Let them see. My husband opened it and began flipping through the pages. The smile disappeared from his face. What is this? He asked. Nobody answered. A voice came from behind us. I'd like to know that too. It was Melissa Grant, one of our wedding guests and a corporate attorney. She stepped forward and reviewed the documents. The room waited. After several seconds, she looked up. These papers transfer significant voting control of Emily's inherited shares. Gasps echoed across the reception hall. I stared at my parents. My mother immediately looked away. My father remained silent. The truth hit me harder than anything Ryan had said. This wasn't his plan alone. They all knew. They had expected me to sign the documents during the reception, surrounded by family pressure and wedding excitement. Ryan shook his head. You're making it sound worse than it is. Melissa closed the folder. Actually, it's worse than that. She pointed to several clauses hidden deep inside the agreement. The terms overwhelmingly benefited Ryan. My parents looked devastated. Years of favoritism were suddenly exposed in front of everyone. Then Ryan's phone rang. He checked the screen. The confidence vanished from his face instantly. Ryan stared at his phone as the color drained from his face. He stepped away from the table and answered immediately. What do you mean frozen? The room fell silent. Everyone was listening now. Ryan turned his back to us, but his voice kept rising. No, that's impossible. There has to be a mistake. A few seconds later, he lowered the phone and stood completely still. My father walked over. What's happening? Ryan looked at him. They froze everything. What? My business accounts. All of them. The reception hall erupted with whispers. Ryan had spent years pretending everything was under control. Now the truth was impossible to hide. My mother started crying. My father looked exhausted. For the first time, neither of them tried defending him. Ryan turned toward me. Emily, please. Just help me. Months earlier, I would have said yes without hesitation. But standing beside my husband, I finally understood something. Helping Ryan had never actually helped him. It had only protected him from consequences. I shook my head. No. The single word seemed to hit harder than any argument. That night, my husband and I left the reception hand in hand. 6 months later, the family business was thriving. The inherited shares remained protected. Ryan was finally responsible for his own choices. My parents eventually reached out and tried rebuilding our relationship. Slowly, carefully, I allowed it. My wedding became more than a celebration of love. It became the day I finally chose self-respect over guilt.